Hey guys, it's Nana, and today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in December. So excuse me if I'm a bit fidgety today. I am standing up while I'm filming. I've never done that, so I'm like, what do I do? How do I keep my body? But yeah, just thought I'd try and switch it up a little bit, see how this looks. But anyway, let's talk about the books that I read in December. As per usual, we're going in chronological order, and the first book that I finished is White Teeth by Zadie Smith. Yay! I finally read something by Zadie Smith, something I've been meaning to do for ages and ages, and I thought, and several people recommended, that I start with her first novel, which is this one. This is about two families, and the book follows their lives as they live in London for about 30 years approximately. We see the parents and then the children, so two generations, and yeah, it's just about their lives and their experiences living in London. So I really had no idea what this was about going into it, so once I kind of settled into the story, I really enjoyed it. I mean, of course, as I'm sure you can guess, Zadie Smith's writing is so excellent. And one thing I really enjoyed about this novel is that there are little bits of humor thrown in, like little digs and just kind of sarcastic comments that make you chuckle. And I wasn't expecting that. There's so many different themes explored in here. I mean, she talks about race. One of the families is Bengali, and the father has an experience of people assuming that he's Indian or Pakistani or Arab or all variety of things, which are just wrong. It's about what it's like to be an immigrant in London at this time and issues that we're still dealing with even to this day. And of course, in this book and in life, race and immigration go hand in hand. There are people telling Samad to go back to his country and all kinds of terrible things. And there's a really interesting line about Samad is from London just as much as anyone else. London is such an international city, and for people to assume that he doesn't belong just because of his skin color is just wrong, wrong, wrong. Lots of really interesting thoughts and observations about race and immigration in London. And another theme I found really interesting, which ties in with that, is the feeling of displacement. And that's, you've lived in London for so many years, but you're not accepted there because your skin is a different color. But also you've lived away from home for so many years that you've missed things, and people see you as a foreigner now. So where do you belong and where do you fit in? That's a topic that I found really, really interesting. And also, as a matter of fact, I wrote one of my theses about kind of that feeling of displacement. So I love seeing it pop up in here and kind of seeing her take on it. You can just tell that Zadie Smith is so intelligent, and it comes through in her writing so much, and you're just like, I just want to have a conversation with her and let her impart her wisdom upon me. The things that she says and the comments that she makes are so sharp and clever and also spot on. And I just loved reading this. I think this was a great one to start with. I mean, obviously I have nothing to compare it to, but I like to see how an author has evolved over time. So I'm thinking that the next book of hers that I read will be Swing Time, because the plot of it just sounds right up my alley. And that was my intention with reading this one first. I didn't want to start with her latest novel, so I thought I'll start with her earliest one and then I can read her latest novel. Let me know if you've read White Teeth, or let me know what's your favorite Zadie Smith book. The next book I read in December was a book that made my favorites of 2016, and that's What Belongs to You by Garth Greenwell. This book was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful, and it follows a relationship between our narrator and a young man he meets named Nicole, who is a prostitute, and he strikes up a relationship with this young man. So in this book, Nicole is very mysterious. The narrator doesn't really know where he's from, why he's doing this, and what he's really like, but at the same time he has this personality that's so inviting and makes you feel like you know him. So there's this weird contradiction between Mikko clearly hiding certain things or acting a certain way, and also his ability to make you feel included and like you're special. The book is set in Bulgaria, and the narrator is gay, and there's still very much an underground scene there. So he talks about where you go to meet people and where you go to find people to hook up with, and just kind of how the whole network works, which I found really interesting. The reason I keep calling him the narrator is because he doesn't actually have a name. We never actually find out his name. And really the only person's name throughout the entire book that we do know is Mitko. Everyone else, we get like an initial, and for the narrator, we don't even have that. So we have this character who, as I've said, has different personalities and shows different sides of himself to different people, and he's the one who's named. And everyone else is nameless, which is a way of kind of, taking something away from the self. So I just thought it was an interesting choice that the author made. The writing in this book is so lyrical and flows together beautifully, and I was expecting that because I got the chance to hear the author read from it, and I could just tell, from that little excerpt that he read how beautiful it was. And also Garth is a poet, so you can just see how that influences his fiction writing. As you might guess, the narrator and Mikko have a somewhat tumultuous relationship, and he knows that Mikko is not good for him, yet there's something magnetic that keeps bringing them together, and it's that idea when you know that something is not right for you, but you also can't let it go. This is such a good book. It's a slim little novel. It's just about 200 pages, I think, and it was wonderful. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The next book I read was Everything, Everything, and this is a story of a young girl named Maddie who has grown up in a bubble. She has this autoimmune disease that doesn't allow her to leave the house because pretty much anything she comes in contact with could make her sick. One day, a new family moves in next door, and as she starts to kind of become curious about the neighbors, she also starts to become curious about the outside world and what life is like out there. I loved the style in which it was written. There's a mix of emails and kind of like journal entries from Maddie and texts and just different mediums, so I really enjoyed that. There's that coming of age aspect because Maddie's a teenager and she's growing up in a very different way than other children are, so naturally she's curious about how they live. And when she meets this family next door, and in particular this boy, it kind of opens up her eyes to all of these things that she hasn't really experienced. So it's also about how these little moments and little decisions can alter the course of your life. I thought it was really charming, really sweet, and well written, and I gave it 3.5 stars out of 5. Then I read Here Comes the Sun by Nicole Dennis-Benn. This is about 2 generations of women in a family, and there's the mother, Dolores, and her 2 daughters, Margot and Thandi. The book is set in Jamaica, and each of these women has different goals in life, and it's about how they struggle to achieve those goals and also about the obstacles that they face. I thought this was so great. I really enjoyed the setting, reading a book set in Jamaica and kind of getting a taste of the language and the culture. And then I just thought each of these characters were so fascinating. So there's Dolores, who has darker skin than her daughters, and she says something like, there's nothing worse than being black and poor and ugly. And so she feels that because her skin is darker and because of the way she looks, that all of the opportunities in life have been stripped from her. Then there's her daughter Margot, who is more beautiful than her mother, but that beauty has also been a bit of a curse in Margot's life. And finally there's the last daughter, Thandi, and both Margot and Dolores have put all of their hopes on Thandi because she is smart. And they think that if she works hard at school, she can become a doctor and, go off and make something of herself. So they put a lot of pressure on her to succeed. But neither of them is really considering what Thandi wants. So the relationships between these 3 women are so interesting. And also they're each trying to navigate, life and trying to achieve certain goals. In Thandi's case, these, at one point maybe they were her goals, but at one point she realizes this is really what my mother and sister want for me. What do I want myself? So there's lots of interesting discussion, of course, about beauty and about race, privileges that white people have in Jamaica versus black, and also, how the color of your skin matters also. There are different privileges given to those who are lighter versus those who are darker, and there's a different standard of beauty. Lighter is considered more beautiful, and darker is not. There's also discussion of tourism in Jamaica. Margot works for one of the resorts, and that's considered a good job because the pay is good. And there's this exploration of how tourism affects the lives of the residents of Jamaica. There's this town that gets completely wiped away because they want to build a new resort. So they kick all of the residents out of their homes so that they can build a resort for foreigners to come and visit the country. So on the one hand, the resort is giving the people who live there jobs, but on the other hand, they've been evicted from their homes because of the resort. So lots of fascinating thoughts on that. There's also discussion of sexuality and sexual identity, because Margot starts seeing this woman, and that is completely not allowed. It's frowned upon, and lesbians are considered evil and, you know, devil worshippers basically in Jamaica. So there's so much stigma attached to that. So again, so many fascinating topics in this book, and I particularly thought the characters were so well done. Each of our main characters and the other characters as well are so distinct. I just thought it was a wonderful novel. It was very close to making my top reads of 2016, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then the last book I finished in December and also 2016 was In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. And this is about a character named Nora who's invited to the hen weekend, bachelorette weekend, of her old friend Claire. But it's weird because she hasn't been in touch with Claire in 10 years. So she kind of goes to this hen weekend not knowing what to expect. And as you can guess, things take a dark turn. So that this book was okay. I thought the characters were pretty one-dimensional. It did keep me flipping the pages, but by the time I got to maybe like 2/3 through, I was like, you know what, I don't really care about this. Like, I don't particularly care what happens. I noticed that I kept putting it down, and, you know, and I'd pick it up and read a little and then put it down. So I was like, if something had really captured my attention, I wouldn't want to put it down. But I finished it because I was not that far away from the end. But yeah, I just thought it was okay. I think it's very predictable. I think I predicted what was going to happen like maybe halfway through the book or earlier, so everything is very anticlimactic after that, especially when it happens like exactly as you think it's going to happen. So I was hoping for a little bit more surprise, a little bit more thrill, a little more mystery. It was an alright read, and I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. So those are all of the books that I read in December, and that is a wrap for 2016. Definitely let me know if you've read any of these books, and if so, what you thought about them. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you want to talk to me elsewhere, I am on Instagram, Goodreads, Twitter, all the places. I'll leave my links down below, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!